Hey, Montel Williams here. Look, I've got some incredible news to share with you. I want to tell you about my brand new book that's coming out that's called The Sailing of the Intrepid. Now, this book is more than just an historical account. It's a tribute to the brave men who served aboard the USS Intrepid and a celebration of their extraordinary legacy. Writing this book was such an incredible story, and I'm really thrilled to be able to share it with you. So don't wait to grab your little piece of history. The book is available right now to order. You can go to montelmedia.com, and you can even get a limited autograph signed copy. Now, thank you so much for your support. I can't wait for you to read this incredible story of the sailing of the Intrepid. I'll see you on the pages. Well, hey guys, welcome back to Free Thinking with Montel. I'm your host, Montel Williams, and today we're diving into a topic that's really deeply personal to me, stroke recovery. As many of you know, I had a stroke in 2018, and it completely changed my life. Recovery is a journey not just for the survivor, but for everyone around them. And today, I'm honored to have two incredible guests who are not only living through this journey, but also helping others navigate it. Joining me are Debra Meyerson, PhD, and her husband, Steve Zuckerman. Debra is a former tenured professor at Stanford University who in 2010 suffered a severe stroke that left her paralyzed on one side and unable to speak. Through the years of hard work, she's regained her independence and has become a voice of hope and resilience for stroke survivors everywhere. Together, Debra and Steve co-founded Onward, a nonprofit dedicated to helping survivors and their families rebuild their lives and identities after stroke. They're also here to talk about the second edition of their book, Identity Theft, which is hitting shelves really soon. Debra, Steve, welcome, and thank you so much for being a part of Free Thinking today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, thank you both. You know, Debra, your story is so inspiring. You were a professor at Stanford University studying identity and organizational change, and then your own identity was completely upended by your stroke. Can you take us back to that time in 2010, what it was like to face such a profound change in your life?
In 2010, I was a professor tenured professor at Stanford. I was the active mother, wife, and athlete. Then I had a severe stroke. Everything changed.
Can I ask you, was your stroke an ischemic stroke or a hemorrhagic stroke?
Ischemic stroke.
Ischemic? Okay, go right ahead.
I was paralyzed on my right side. I couldn't see a word. I couldn't make a sound. I was the patient. I was the burden. 3 years after my stroke, I worked my ass off. The hardest job I have ever had. Luckily, I had really good therapy. I knew I would work hard, so I knew I could get my old life back.
You know, it's amazing. I mean, I understand what you went through. I know the feelings. Maybe you just take a minute to share with our listeners. First off, did you know you were having a stroke when you had one? Did you black out? What happened?
No, the 6 months. I really had a headache, really bad headache. 6 months, and I had the two episodes. One is the faint, and one is I had the dry. My daughter, my daughter.
Okay, take your time.
Yeah,
take your time. It's okay.
If it's okay, I'll jump
Sure.
in. Deb's was kind of an unusual stroke in that it was ischemic, but it was caused by something called a dissection, not a blood clot. Dissection is a tear in the inner wall of the artery. And so, in hindsight, she was getting these warning signs because that tear must have happened, but it would block the blood flow temporarily and then open back up, block the blood flow, open back up. And so when the doctor, she actually went and had scans, they saw nothing. And then finally, Labor Day weekend, it must have blocked the blood flow and not opened back up, but it kind of came on slowly for her, where first her legs started acting funny, then she had trouble controlling her arm, and that's when we knew something was wrong and got her to the hospital, and kind of the symptoms set in over time. It wasn't that instantaneous event that a lot of people experience.
Yeah, so I mean, yours is entirely different from mine. I had a hemorrhagic stroke, a cerebellar hemorrhagic stroke. So I had a major class 3.5 bleed in the back of my brain. That literally, when it happened, I'll tell you a very crazy story. I was in a gym in New York City working out when it happened. And I was in the gym by myself. And what was crazy about it is that being alone in that gym, all of a sudden I heard this really loud pop. And I looked around behind me and I couldn't figure out where that noise came from. And then when I turned my head back around to the front, the entire room started kaleidoscoping. And I started getting dizzy to the point that, I thought, let me go sit down. And then before I sat down, I went, no, don't sit down, because if you sit down, you're going to lay down and you're never going to get up. So I ended up wall walking, using the wall, my hands. I walked myself out of the gym, took an elevator up to my hotel room where my wife was at. And I walked in the door and I said, baby, call 911 and tell them your husband just had a stroke. What? I said, call them. I think I'm having a stroke right now. EMT showed up. When the EMT showed up, the EMT said, you having a stroke? I said, yes. Blessedly for me, in the city of New York, they have 3 stroke configured emergency vehicles that just move around the city. One of those stroke emergency vehicles was 2.5 blocks away from my hotel. Pulled up to the front of the hotel. They got me down into the emergency vehicle, which had a CAT scan in it. They were performing a CAT scan on my brain within 4 minutes, 5 minutes. That literally is what saved my life, because I look up in the corner and there's a doctor on the screen and he says, Mr. Williams, you're absolutely right. You not only had a stroke, but you're still having a stroke right now. We need to get you to the emergency room. So then I went to the emergency room and I spent the next 5 days, I was completely, lucid. I was unconscious. After that, the bleeding stopped, of course, and I spent a whole month in the hospital, recovering. Very strange, though I had such a big bleed. I'm blessed because the blood missed my brainstem by 1/100 of an inch. Had it hit my brainstem, I wouldn't be talking to you today. So now I understand so much of what you're going through, Debra, because for the first 10 days, I couldn't get my mouth to work correctly. Then the next 10 days, it started working. I had massive headache that just would not go away for 30 days, but it finally did go away. And of course I had to go through it. I had difficulty walking. I had difficulty moving and things like that. But I literally went through rehab and worked really, really, really hard at it. When we're done this podcast, I'm going to tell you about something that I think you might want to try. There's an electronic device or something that you might want to try. That's what I work with and I use every single day now that I helped me recover. So I'll give you some information about that. But it's a tough one. I mean, Steve, when did you find out? How did you know? Were you there during that period? Were you watching that?
No, it's 6 months. I the 15 years ago.
Yeah, so Deb's stroke was 15 years ago. And yes, I was, again, we had these warning signs, so we kind of went to hospitals together. And then the stroke actually hit. We were going up to Lake Tahoe for Labor Day weekend with two of our three kids. And, that was when just sort of getting out of the car, we were going to go for a hike, and Deb's leg was just kind of not quite right. Wasn't painful. It just, she couldn't support her weight at certain knee bends, other knee bends she could. And then it was the next morning, after having a headache that night, she woke up the next morning, and that's when we saw some impact on her right arm. And somewhere, I had kind of seen sign of a stroke is weakness on one side of the body. And so when it was the leg, we didn't really think, but then when it was the leg and the arm, we were like, okay, this is real. And took her to the hospital. They did a scan. Unfortunately, some of the quick treatments that can be helpful weren't relevant in her case because of the dissection. So we just had to watch as one of the doctors said to me, the damage is done. There's nothing we can do, but the impact of that damage is going to play out over the next 12 to 24 hours. And that's how we had to watch the depth of her disabilities grow in terms of right side paralysis and, in her case, lost speech completely.
Yeah, it really lost speech, really. The one year.
And Debra, inside of you, you were then not probably able to communicate what your feelings were, but now that you can, talk to me about what was going on inside of Debra's brain. What was happening inside of you? What was happening?
I am really the Stanford, the nurse. I am so angry. And the nurse, I am really angry about the nurse. Steve and my mom are here.
I think. Well, for like the first week, I don't think Deb has any specific. I mean, she was not unconscious, but the brain kind of wasn't working. I mean, when we
same with me, I understand. Yep.
It's sort of like just lost a week. But then once she sort of came back, she had this, like, she couldn't communicate at all, at least not verbally. And one of the most frustrating experiences that Deb was describing was a nurse in the ER who came in and started talking to me and to her mom, who was with us, as if Deb wasn't in the room.
Yeah.
And she could understand everything that was being said.
Yeah. Yes.
And that, I think, at one point in the pre-trade, you asked about the phrase care partner that we use. One of the reasons we started using care partner was to signal to healthcare professionals that Deb's still a partner in her own care. Yeah. Just because she can't speak, don't treat her as if we're the caregivers and she's just the recipient. And that, I think that was the only time we ever asked a hospital never to staff Deb's room with a person because Deb was so angry with the way.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, if my wife was sitting here right now with me, she would say to you almost identical things that you're saying, because she literally was so angry sometimes, a couple of times. Well, first off, I will tell you, I probably ended up having, they stuck IVs in me like 40, 50, 60 times. You know what I mean? To the point that veins in both of my arms collapsed. To the point that, and it was so bad, like by day 5, when I finally was lucid enough to be able to talk, and I had difficulty speaking, but I could say it to my wife, these guys are killing me. My arms are hurting. And I would say it to her, and then I would kind of like pass out again. I literally would go back to sleep. And so she, the nurse would come in to redo the IV, and she would just like, you guys are destroying him. And, and I can remember a couple times I could hear her talking, but I couldn't say anything. But I could hear her explaining to these nurses, you need to back up a little bit. And then finally they got a grip. But yeah, that's a tough time. So you had to work. I mean, you said this happened. How long were you in the hospital?
2 months.
Oh, okay.
The 2 days, the 2 weeks in the Stanford, and 2 weeks in Valley Medical Center, and 2 weeks in the Stanford, and 2 days. Oh no, 2 weeks in Valley.
Yeah. So Deb,
And then throughout all that time, when did you start? You started occupational therapy,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
before you
yeah,
even left the
yeah.
yeah.
first
So
hospital.
it was sort of critical care for 2 to 3 weeks. Then she got into inpatient rehab, and unfortunately, after about 2.5 weeks doing rehab, she had another stroke,
Yeah,
and had to go
Oh,
back
yeah.
to Stanford Hospital. Had a bunch of blood infections and was in the ICU, and ended up having to have surgery to have that dissection physically repaired with a stent. And then finally got back to the rehab hospital for about another week, and then was able to come home. So it was 2 months, 2 months in total.
Yeah, yeah.
and then occupational therapy for years.
No, I am still just doing it.
Got it.
Yeah,
And maybe you can speak to how important that is, because I have spoken to several stroke survivors, and sometimes they don't understand that term, you can get out of it what you put in it, is real. I
yeah,
mean, the harder you working out here, I understand you busted your butt, did you not?
yeah. Yes, and 3 years. It's really the I am so thankful, and I am really thankful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you wrote what are you wrote the first edition to Identity Theft after losing tenure at Stanford in 2013. How did that experience shape your understanding of identity in recovery?
The, 3 years after my stroke, Steve and I were sitting on Clad Seal, the dean of the Stanford Education School. Stanford usually grants 2 years of medical leave. Claude extended it for not the other 9 months. My therapy was helping a lot, but my aphasia didn't. It's possible to do my job. With great compassion, he told me I had resigned from my tenured position. It's hit me, hit me to the 10 of bricks. We left in silence. I had just lost my career. I had just lost the person I always been. I was devastated. The Steve and I are optimistic. The we were going to do everything that I can. Now we had can accept that my stroke would see the stroke had changed my life forever.
It changed you, but let me ask this question, Steve. Steve, I mean, you still have Debra. The Debra that was there before the stroke is still the Debra that's there today, just a little different, right? Not a little different, but different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we talk a lot about the fact that, one, who you are changes. It does for all of us in life, and two, your opportunities change. And the challenge for Deb was she's still intrinsically the same person, but she can't do a lot of the things she used to do the same way she used to do them. And so that really became a big part of her struggle, and the work that led to identity theft was that whole notion of how can you express who you are when the ways you used to express it are no longer available to you. And that's so much of kind of our work today.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand loss, and I understand loss of those pieces of ourselves. But when the original pieces kind of start resurfacing and coming through, and I'm not talking about the ability to move and those things. I'm talking about those thoughts in here that remind me and remind you of who you were when you get some of those memories back that probably over the last couple of years, where originally you were missing so many of those memories, and then those memories start to come back. You start to realize that I'm still here.
Yeah.
Now can I show everybody else that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think something we talk a lot about is grieving, and grieving the loss of the person you used to be, of the life you used to have. And that, in Deb's case, memory really, she got her memory back really quickly. So it
Great.
wasn't about remembering what she used to do. For her, it was so much frustration that she couldn't do what she wanted to do. And as Deb's gotten better, and as Deb's found new ways, I mean, we talk about the fact that she lost her traditional academic career, but she's found a way to continue to be an academic, writing a book about stroke, helping to speak about it as part of Stroke Onward. It's not a traditional academic career, but she's still an academic. But still, sometimes in the middle of one of the most rewarding things she's doing, she'll remember back to how she used to do it and start to grieve again. And we talk about it as cycles of grief. You're never, just like if you lose a loved one, you never stop missing them. You never stop grieving them. You just have to learn how to live a life in the face of that. And I think that's really what Deb, and to a lesser extent I experience, is we have to give ourselves the space to grieve what we've lost, but try not to get stuck in that grief, and realize that there are still so many ways we're lucky, and what can we do with what we still have? How do we want to live that life?
And is that part of the reason why you've decided to release the second edition of this book? Because now you can talk about it from this phase?
The second edition of the book is the really a lot of the stroke across America, uh, and aphasia. I have no idea. The aphasia is so big, and mental health.
Yeah, I mean, since we published the first book back in 2019, we worked for 5 years in the stroke care world and learned so much more that we didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we did research for the first edition of the book, but then we started speaking to classes and giving talks at conferences and meeting. Deb interviewed 25 stroke survivors for the first edition, but probably in the 5 years after that book came out, we met and talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of stroke survivors. So we just felt like we had some new insights, some new learning that we thought were worth adding to the book. And that's what really led us to do a second edition instead of just a second printing when the inventory of the first book was running low.
And I mean, now some of the things that you've learned, and some of the things I learned, I was not aware of how prevalent stroke has become in America. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, it is systemic in a sense that there's just so much, and we don't talk about it the way we should. It's almost as if it's that dirty little secret that America wants to keep hidden. But stroke is a prevalence, especially among, and I'm just saying for myself, from African American males. As we get older, stroke prevalence has gone through the roof.
Yeah, and the young people are having a stroke.
Yeah. Increasingly, I think now about 25% of all strokes are people under 60 years old. People often think about stroke as an old person's, event, but clearly the two of you are walking examples of people younger, prime of lives, super fit, athletic. It still happens, and
No, I agree. I mean, it's really gotten crazy, and that's something that when I talk about stroke, I talk about the fact that, especially I'll run into a guy in a gym, African American male, and I'll explain to him, it's like one of the things that we have to start paying attention to is as we get older, though we still are in our prime. There are certain things that we do as we get older that you don't necessarily have to be doing. Like I was a extreme weightlifter up until my stroke, and I say extreme because I was literally throwing around weights at the age of 58, 59 that I was throwing around when I was 25 years old, and that probably did contribute because I was trying to work out at age 58, 59 as if I was still 25, and it's just you're pushing you're pushing the rope up a hill, right?
Yeah.
Deborah, you've spoken about the importance of finding new ways to do the things that matter. What are some of the things and some of the adaptations that you've made or to your daily life that brought you some joy and some sense of purpose?
The pleasure. The riding is the biggest thing. Riding the bike. We have the tandem. Really a usual bike tandem, and I walk instead of run. We have the kayak pedals, and I'm
Well, yeah, I will tell you, I try to walk every day if I can. I probably will take the day off, but I normally walk every single day, try to exercise every day, stay in the gym. And, it's those little things, though, that I'm sure that for you that help you stay focused and stay centered and recognize that you still got so much more to give, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Deb Montel also asked about sort of how adaptation helped you create purpose, and really that was writing the book and starting Stroke Onward, because Deb wasn't ready to retire and live a life of leisure, and yet the career as she knew it was no longer available, and we've found this path to continue to hopefully use whatever gifts we have to try to help make the world a little better place. And that's
Sure.
purpose for Deb.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, as a care partner, what advice would you give others who are supporting loved ones through stroke and through stroke recovery? And what do you wish you had known at the beginning of this entire journey?
I mean, I always hesitate to give advice because everybody's journey is so different. One person we were working with kind of said once when we were talking, he said, when you've met one stroke survivor, well, you've met one stroke survivor. and our experiences are also different. So, but I think, one of the things, I guess, and fortunately, a good friend of mine said this to me fairly soon after Deb's stroke, is you've got to take care of yourself. And I know a lot of care partners who are burnt out, who feel like they can't talk about what their challenges are. And it's true, our challenges are generally pale in comparison compared to what the loved one we have who had a stroke are, but they're real.
However, you have a right to be able to discuss your challenges.
Yeah.
So I'm going
Exactly.
to stop you right there for just a second to say, my brother, go ahead and share some. Some of those challenges are probably, from your perspective, not being able to fix it.
Yeah.
You're the guy who's supposed to be able to fix everything.
Yeah.
Couldn't fix this. And from your perspective, you're the guy who wants to be able to step up there and help her walk, but you can't really help her walk. You can guide her, but you can't. You know what I mean? So share some of those things, those inner thoughts
Yeah.
and inner feelings, so that people don't think that they're alone.
Completely agree. And I think that's one of the hardest things, as we've met, again, dozens, hundreds of care partners, asking for help, grieving the loss of the life they used to have because of the role they're playing as a care partner. I think that's, the single thing that care partners can do. And as somebody said to me once, if you are not healthy physically and emotionally, you're of no use to Deb. And
Right.
that's true. You can't really help if you let yourself get unhealthy. So I'd say that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how is this is to both of you, how has your relationship evolved since the stroke? What have you learned about the partnership that you have and the resilience that you have as partners through this experience?
Yeah. We love the same stuff, skiing, running, hiking, sailing. Steve can do them. I can't. It hurts me to he does them, but I want to him to do it. Really, it's really hard. Yeah.
Makes the relationship.
Do you think this has brought you two closer together?
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, yes. I think, in some ways, one of the things we both loved about our relationship is we loved doing lots of things together, but we also had very independent lives that we each loved. The independent part has become a lot harder for Deb.
Yeah.
So in some ways it's brought us together because we spend more time together, but I don't know, sometimes that's hard too.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I think that's the challenge. I think for me on the relationship, one thing is just it reinforced that I found a wonderful wife that's really good for me, because Deb's grit through this whole thing, I honestly don't know that I could be a good care partner to somebody who was passive and kind of gave up on improving and rebuilding life. And so I just am thankful that Deb has attacked her recovery the way she has. And I think one of the biggest challenges to the relationship, again, it gets back to that care partner thing. Well, on the one hand, it's great when care partners think of themselves in the role of helping their loved one. For Deb and me, if I take that too far, it kind of robs her of being able to be a full partner in the relationship. And so I think one of the biggest challenges we've had is figuring out how we can be in reality about her disabilities and the support she needs and things she can't do, but at the same time make space for the full Deb to be who she is and an equal partner in the relationship. And so, that's work we do every day because it's challenging.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And Deb, I mean, look, I just finished my 9th book, and it's
Yeah.
published now. And I know for a fact writing a book is a monumental task,
Yeah.
let alone for anybody, and let alone for somebody who's recovering from a stroke. What was the writing process like for you, and how do you think it contributed a little bit to your recovery?
The really difficult. I have the 14 no 6 2022 I had the tempered radicals and leaderships.
You're talking about books you wrote before your stroke. Yeah.
Yeah, and the after the stroke, it's so difficult. My son and Danny, and really a lot of help in selling selling interviews, coding concepts, grafting. It's really, I have aphasia. It's so really hard.
And in with the aphasia though, are you still, you're able to find the words? It's just as difficult to put them together, or is it? I mean, what is it? Are the words playing out in your brain the way you want to see them on paper, or do they play out this way, and you got to figure out how to get them on paper?
No, the words are the words are the writing and speaking are the same.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, aphasia can play out in many different ways. There's not, people can have aphasia, and it can have, some people speak like constantly and fluently, but the words they say aren't the ones they mean. Deb's is a word finding form of aphasia. They generally call it expressive aphasia. So she may have thoughts clear in her head, but she just can't get them out. She can't speak them. She can't type them. She can't write them. And so a lot of the writing process had to be talking over time to try to get a sense of what Deb was trying to say. Then somebody else, whether it was me, our son Danny, a woman that we hired for a while, would draft things out. And then Deb could say, yeah, you got it. Or no, that's not what I was trying to say. And so it was a very iterative process.
But it's a solid process because you were able to accomplish and get that book written.
And for 5 years that I am the dictation is really good.
Dictation helps. That's often the best way for Deb to start the process.
Yeah.
Is just to use Siri or some other dictation to kind of start to get the thoughts out.
I would bet that with ChatGPT, that might be helpful in that right now, right?
Yes.
Well, now you both have built an incredible organization called Stroke Onward. What was the vision behind it, and how does it tie into the themes of your book?
You want me to take it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think just as we wrote and then released Identity Theft, it became clear. I mean, for one thing, that process became Deb's learning journey. That's where she really turned the lens of an identity scholar on herself and realized just how important it was for her to reclaim and rebuild her identity as part of the recovery process. And as the book was coming out, we just realized that so many other people were experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
But really, nobody had put words to it. Nobody was really supporting that. And we just figured this is a place where, for whatever combination, our unique experiences of Deb as an academic who studied identity, our lived experience with stroke, my nonprofit background, that maybe there was a way we could help improve the system. And that's what led us to start Stroke Onward. So it really is completely built on the foundation of the book, and what we learned writing the book is kind of how it got going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The healthcare system often focuses on short-term recovery. What changes do you think are needed to better support survivors in the long-term emotional and identity rebuilding process?
The the mental more mental health and emotional health support. For the years after my stroke, really a lot of the rest of the lives.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely feel like people are screaming that there's a lack of mental health and emotional health support in the stroke recovery process. Some of that is that, stroke grew up in the healthcare system as a critical care intervention, that first ER visit that you had, and then the hospital stay, and then a rehabilitative challenge. But it didn't grow up as a chronic healthcare condition, yet most stroke survivors have a chronic condition afterwards, and that needs more mental health and emotional support. I think, we have our team at Stroke Onward now has an explicit 2026 goal of really working with healthcare partners and other stroke survivors to say, okay, what are one or two very explicit changes to the healthcare system that we could build a campaign around to really influence change? And we haven't picked what those are yet, but the issue of mental health and emotional support, the issue that you talked about, that getting care longer, because this incredible trope of most of the recovery happens in the first 6 to 12 months. Deb's still getting better 15 years later. So something about the longevity of treatment, we think, may be one of those issues to really go after. But we hope that, we can really drive some change for better support on the emotional journey.
Well, I'd like to help you on your journey. So don't be afraid to send me an email or reach out. And I'll see what we can do. Now you both embarked on something called Stroke Across America, which was a bicycle trip. Tell me a little bit about that.
The Stroke Across America was a bike ride. The U.S. intended to raise awareness about stroke, brain injury, and aphasia. We rode 4,500 miles over 100 days from Oregon to Boston. We wanted to spotlight the emotional journey after stroke. We hosted 16 community events across the country. They got together survivors, families, friends, care professionals, and more. It was so inspiring. We had a core team of 60 riders and others who joined us works into the ride. We became a family. I didn't expect that.
It was a great trip.
What are some of the most memorable experiences that you experienced along the way, Steve?
So, I mean, I think, in many ways, from a mission perspective, I love the riding. Riding cross country had been on my bucket list since I was 22 years old. So for me, that was just awesome that we were able to do it and do it together, and then do it for a purpose. And I think the community events were really, they just really reinforced how alone so many stroke survivors feel, how much need there is for more education, for more community building, and the need to improve the system. I think at the end of the day, that ride, when we finished that ride, we were committed to trying to do more, to sort of raising the aspirations for Stroke Onward. We were fortunate shortly after the trip to be able to recruit a very experienced social entrepreneur, a woman named Liz Wolfson, to lead Stroke Onward as the first full-time CEO. and are now building a team. So, resources permitting, that's always the challenge with nonprofits. We hope to be able to build a bigger team, do more, make more impact, drive more change. And I think it was that experience of going across the country and meeting, well over 1,000 stroke survivors and families at these events, that really kind of led us to just feel like we had to do that.
Well, I got to tell you, your story is so inspirational. Stroke onward for the two of you. I mean, what do you think is next for you both personally and professionally?
The we the uh, the help stroke grow and uh, drive systems change makes speaking and uh, time to my grandbaby. Yeah, yeah.
How about you?
I think we're gonna, we'll be involved in Stroke Onward as long as we're walking around, and they'll have us. But we are at a phase in our life where we're trying to carve out a little more time for sort of those bucket list items. And I don't know what retirement means these days, but one piece of it is we are fortunate to have our first grandbaby. Maybe there are some more to come, but I think we just really want to support the Stroke Onward team in the work they do, see it make a difference, and keep learning ourselves how to live a full life in the post stroke world.
I guess that would be the one. If I was going to ask you, what would be the one message you want stroke survivors and their families to take away from your book and your work?
I like the documentary.
Deb's just sort of saying, if I can, with Stroke Onward, we've got 3 or 4 major things going on, and we'll shoot you some links for your show notes. But one of them is we were very fortunate that a PBS station, WCNY out of Syracuse, produced a half-hour documentary using footage that we took on the bike trip, and then broadening the message to really talk about the importance. And so that's something that's going to be coming out soon on PBS in Syracuse, and then hopefully nationally, that Deb just wanted to mention. I think if there is a message, it's the emotional journey is a critical part of recovery. Yeah. That recovery isn't synonymous with rehabilitation. Getting your capabilities back is a critical part of recovery, but so is figuring out how to manage the emotional journey and use adaptation to rebuild lives of we say, meaning, purpose, and joy. And that's hard work, and people need to recognize it and get support with it. And is that a fair summary, Deb?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's the boss.
Well, Deb, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, your resilience, and your dedication to helping others is just so inspirational to so many, including me. And to everyone out there who's listening, be sure you check out the second edition of Identity Theft and learn more about Stroke Onward. You're not alone in this journey. And before we go away, Steve, why don't you give out the stats? Where can people go if they want to hear more information? Is there a website? Where do they go?
Easiest place is www.strokeonward.org. And navigating there, you'll find links to something called the Stroke Onward Community Circle, abbreviated SOC, which is a new online community for stroke survivors, for families, for care professionals, focused on the emotional journey and recovery. And there's also information on the website about a program that we do, hosting gatherings in different places, including one that we call Stroke Monologues. It's kind of like TEDx for stroke. And Montel, if we're ever in the right geography, we're going to be reaching out to see if you might join us as a monologuer and tell your story.
Sure.
We found that it's a great way of helping people feel connected, to hear about other people's journeys and build a movement for change.
Absolutely. My friend, well, thank you so much. Please reach out. And for all of you at home, make sure you hit that. If you really like this interview today, which I know you should have, then please hit that subscribe button there at the bottom of your page. And also send us some notes. Tell us what you think. And again, I thank you both for being a part of Free Thinking today. And make sure you keep tuning in to Free Thinking with Montel. Thank you. Thanks for joining me on Free Thinking with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear feedback, so please send us your comments. Military Makeover is so grateful for the support of Purple Heart Homes, a nonprofit organization that rebuilds and transforms the homes for our veterans.
Our heroes come home with sacrifices most of us can't imagine. As a veteran myself, I've been there and founded Purple Heart Homes to help.
When I tell the story of Purple Heart Homes, it's the freedom to not have to depend on somebody else to do the simple everyday things in life.
Visit phhusa.org/makeover to learn how you can help.